All right.
I would have knelt, but I probably wouldn't have been able to get up.
So what did you do at church today? I had my program while I was there. All right, let's see what we can do here. Let's get this over here. So it is truly, indeed, a very fine time today, a very special occasion for us in this center here. We've been working diligently for really quite a while. You know, the history here is that our Wisdom Council really never stopped looking for space once we moved in here and began to have Sunday services, because we knew the day would come when the space down the way wouldn't work. And, you know, at the last minute, I've called folks on Saturday morning and said, I know you don't have any plans. Come on down, let's look at this space. And we'd look and we'd drool and we'd dream and we'd go, it needs $30,000 worth of repairs. We can't do that. We don't have that money, and we're not going to extend ourselves to that degree. And so we just thought and we prayed and we came upon this as a potential solution. For this to work, what I want you to know is we love you and we need you to be here. We need our family in this door on Sundays. We need you to tell people that we have a teaching that will change their lives for the better. Not that there's anything wrong with what they're already doing, because God knows it's worked as long as it's worked, okay? It's still working for them, and that's great. But the truth is, we're not so by golly different from all the other teachings out there that we need to be in fear of bringing people in this door. So tell your friends, tell your families. I promise I'll try to act normal, okay? That's a promise. I didn't say I would, okay? I said I'll try, didn't I? Yeah, uh-huh.
That's what the reading was this morning, visualize.
Visualizing, yes ma'am, exactly, visualizing it. So we have gotten here today because we have a very clear understanding in the science of mind teaching that what we claim into form when we take the high road in consciousness is what will manifest, okay? We have recognized that we have choices. We can take that high road in consciousness, or we can take a different road and see how well that serves us and get to learn from that experience. That's always the fun and bumpy road. And it's a very important piece to the science of mind teaching. Really, when we look at it in a nutshell, what we are here about is recognizing that we always have choice and that we always have the capacity to choose a higher situation, a higher belief, a higher road. It's often easy when we're in the middle of a trial or a tribulation to think, it would be really nice if we never had any of these difficulties. It would be really nice if my life was just smooth sailing. But there's something about the trials, the bumps in the road, the obstacles that really make them worthwhile. It doesn't mean it's fun when we're awake in the middle of the night with a family member. It doesn't mean that it's enjoyable when we're struggling over the nature of a relationship with something or someone. What we find, though, when we get past that cross in the road, when we get past that area of difficulty with something, is that we have a sense of achievement and an awareness that somehow, through that experience, we grew. We became more than we knew that we were. And that is what life is about. It is really about picking up and gaining that momentum and moving through those things that look like challenges, those things that look like crucibles or bumps in the road, and moving through them and recognizing that there is so much more to us and so much more that we are capable of than we knew beforehand. In those moments of difficulty, though, of trial, what we find is that it is necessary to take a leap of faith. We find, just as our founder Ernest Holmes told us, that we have to shift from having what Ernie called faith in God to the faith of God, being that, living that. And we find that there is essentially really only one ingredient that is necessary. That is clear thinking. The Bible even tells us this. In our sister teaching, Unity of Christianity, in his book, Prosperity, co-founder Charles Fillmore tells us that just like Genesis says, we have dominion over the animals, just like the Bible tells us. But in his interpretation of it, Charles tweaks it, and he says, it isn't the animals that we have dominion over. Do you have cats, by the way? I mean, really good luck, right? Hang that, on a tree, okay? I know who's in charge of my house. Just get the spoon and get the can and shut up, lady, okay? Meh, okay, meh, okay, I'll feed you now, I'll do anything, right? What Charles recognized is that there's a much deeper meaning to that, and that it has to do with consciousness. It has to do with the level at which we allow our thinking to rest. That we are creatures that by nature are endowed with the potential for high consciousness. And when we allow that high consciousness to be the GPS, to be the controlling agent, to land the plane, if you will, to fly it and land it. Lewis knows about that. What do you call those things on planes?
Autopilot?
Autopilot, thank you. When we allow that to be the autopilot, what happens is that higher thinking takes over. That higher awareness becomes the governor, the governess of what is going on in our lives, so that those little incendiary, moment, negative, thoughts don't have control over us. We begin to recognize that with every breath, at every second, we have that choice to take that road of higher consciousness. Overcoming is our God-endowed ability. Rationing through something, reasoning through something, is our capacity, is a God-endowed mechanism. And the way that we do that is simply through that one tool. It's through the tool of thought. If we want to have lives that are happier and healthier, more prosperous, more joyous, fuller, just richer, better all the way around, we will become masters of the activity that we call thought. We will begin to make thought our servant. Many spiritual teachers have told us that the mind is a wonderful servant and a really lousy master. And that's true. Think about when you first wake up in the morning. What are the first few thoughts you have in consciousness? Wayne Dyer liked to say, he did this in the movie The Shift, you can wake up and think, good God, it's morning! Or good morning, hello God. We have that choice. We can pick the happy or the not so. We're always at choice. Ernest Holmes even told us that trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. That is why in this teaching, if someone is struggling with something or has questions about how to shift something going on in their lives, we really encourage them, get with a practitioner. This is someone who has spent maybe light years of their lives learning how to think. They have trained their thought. They have headed down that road of becoming masters in the thinking arena. Henry Ford even told us the same thing. He said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, the bottom line is you're right. Whichever. Have you ever thought yourself happy? I do it a lot. Have you ever worried yourself into being sick? Yeah, and it's not fun either. It's a pickle, isn't it, to get back out of that. It's a debilitating physical, mental, psychological, intellectual miasma sometimes. The more and the stronger that we commit to clean thinking, that isn't thinking without cuss words. It isn't thinking without other ideas. It's thinking clearly about what it is we desire to put out there in each and every second, and being a broadcasting station of that, the more and the stronger that we commit to that clean thinking as our primary and overarching spiritual practice, the more that we will see alignment with good, both in our inner worlds and on the outer plane. So how neat or how sloppy is our thinking when we get into a place of little resolve? What happens when it seems that the boat one is on is stuck in the mud? What do? Do we allow it to have its way with us? How many of you have been there? How many of you can name decades? Yeah, okay, baby. I mean, I got a whole lot of past life history, of like stuck in the mud big time. But I really believe these tools that we pick up and use in Science of Mind are the first steps in finding out and recognizing who we truly are, what our true self is all about. Now, what do I mean by true self? Well, our true self is sort of like our heritage. Heritage, if we go to the dictionary, is defined as something that comes or belongs to one by reason of birth. What is our heritage? What is it that is ours? Simply by reason of birth? Well, let's watch this little video clip. We begin to get it, that the universe isn't just around us. It has its life from inside of us, from within us. Now think about that for a moment. Think about the fact that what you are is made up of something that lived billions of years ago, that exploded and moved through whatever is, through space, and became form, became what you are. How eternally complete can we be understanding that? We are the very essence of life itself. In the Science of Mind teaching, we recognize yet one other truism that is contained within Genesis, and that is that we are made in the image and the light and the likeness of our Creator, or perhaps its creation. That all that is comes to fruition and form in us as that which was brought here to be the representation of Christ consciousness here. The Bible isn't alone that tells us that. We see that in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Quran, and in the Torah. And these wisdom teachings all relate 3 characteristics of that which we could call God, that which is universal, that which is everywhere and everywhen. We understand that God is omnipotent, omnipotent, let's say it correctly. What does that mean? It means having infinite power, having complete power. Now you might say, well, I don't have the power to herd a room full of cats. I'm sure Caleb at Catman would agree with that statement. I don't have the power to stop a speeding automobile from hitting a tree. But in our minds, in every second, we always have infinite power about thought and infinite power about choice. It's a 100% deal here. We might not make that clear all the way to the outside arena, but in here, we get to call it. We get 100% say. Those wisdom teachings also tell us that God is omniscient. What does that mean? It means all-knowing. For us, I believe that what that means is that when we remind ourselves that we are able to, we can tap into the all-knowingness that simply is the mind of God. Again, it is our thought that takes us to this place. Lastly, these spiritual traditions all tell us that God is omnipresent, that there's a fabric, a connectivity, a web of consciousness that is the backdrop for all that is, that everything that is encased within this, is a part of it. An easy way to see that omnipresence, is to simply think the next time the phone rings about who is calling you before you look at it or pick it up. Most of the time we know, don't we? Sure, we know, okay? We might not know that we know, but we know. This story, this omnipresence is dramatized even more in a story that comes to us from a gentleman by the name of Lawrence Anthony. Lawrence Anthony died in March of 2012. But before he passed, he was known as the Elephant Whisperer. I know, we have everything whisperer now, don't we? Anthony had given a large part of his life to rescuing and rehabilitating wildlife, and especially elephants, all over the globe. He was almost single-handedly responsible for going into Baghdad when the U.S. invaded in 2003 and saving the animals in the Baghdad Zoo. When he died in March of 2012, that expression, or that reality, that omnipresence is a tangible force that every one of us is party to, was depicted in the behavior of a number of droves of wild elephants. Lawrence Anthony lived in South Africa, and he died at home. 2 days later, 31 elephants showed up in his front yard. Hello. We didn't invite you to dinner. Okay? They got it. Nobody called them. Nobody went in search of them to say to him, your brother who has cared for you, who has given you the gift of life, has passed. They just got it. They just knew. They are sentient beings. They are aware of what's going on. They are omnipresent in nature. They picked up on that through the very fabric of consciousness, whatever that is. And they came. Some of them walked 12 miles. And from what I get it, elephants really ain't into exercise, walking as a form of exercise, you know. They stayed there 2 days. In order to do that, they gave up their normal natural food supply and did not eat at all. When they were done saying goodbye to someone who had carried them and supported them, they turned around and they went home. If that omnipresence is alive in the beast, it has to be alive in that which is made in the image and the likeness of God. It has to be me, and it has to be you. Every one of us. It doesn't matter about skin color. It doesn't matter whether some clerk in Kentucky said okay or no. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we get it. That we, every one of us, are part and parcel of that God consciousness. I love that story. I'm going to find a movie about it. I know there's got to be one. Ernest Holmes even tells us in The Science of Mind teaching that the divine is not only beyond us, it is not only around us, it is within. Nowhere in any of that spiritual literature I mentioned earlier do we find any place at all where God says, you know, I can't do that. I'm not big enough. I don't know how. So what we have to do when we find ourselves at that place, at that chasm where we need to step forward and we just don't know how, is we ask ourselves, what would God do? What do I need to do here? What is the essence of my next action, my next right and perfect action? What would God do? And we can take that leap of faith, and we can move forward, and we can do things we never believed possible. We will see miracles that we never thought could come to pass. We only have to take the ceiling, the limitation produced by errors in thinking, off of our immediate situation, and things begin to get easier, and they change, and love flows. So as I close today, I want to just read a really brief piece. This is one that I really love. I think most of us have been at this place before. We live another day, we'll probably go there again. But to me, it is the calling that comes deepest and clearest. This is Howard Thurman from The Inward Journey. It's entitled The Moment of My High Resolve. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance that I had forgotten. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure that it would illumine my path for all the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey. Details, lower-level demands, all kinds of cross currents. Nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant. Just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve.